Alright, so last night I had left some coolant there in the bottom of the thing. Might be hard to tell, but it did drop down a little bit. I've checked, I don't have any leaks. It's pretty common that as the motor and coolant changes air temperature that you can still get some burping, so that's pretty good. Might be hard to tell on the camera, but right here is where the coolant is now sitting. So not too bad. So this morning I'm gonna go ahead and make me up a template real quick for the holes that I need to drill for my plate and how thick I'm going to make it. I got me one of these binder pieces. I like to use those. They make good templates. So I'm going to draw that out real quick and get the measurements, and then I'm going to go ahead and drill and cut up the brackets that I've got here, and that way I can get that started. And then once I get that I'm going to go ahead and pull the bumper off so I have room to work, and then I'll worry about getting those all set up. And then I will finalize putting these oil lines in and making sure that we put oil in, bleed this system out. So hopefully by the end of the day, if nothing else, I can have the brackets in the front end put back together. But I will, in the meantime, go through all my clamps and everything I got up here and make sure everything's nice and tight and where it's supposed to be. I still have to replace this yellow line with this black one that we have right here, and we still need to plug in the connector here, so, and then zip tie that up all out of the way. So other than that, we've made some pretty good progress. I still need to pull the brakes off and get the axles out so I can change those lugs out. That'll be next on the program, I think. That way I can get that put back together. But once I get oil in this, I can get this thing started, and that will definitely make sure we don't have any leaks and everything's running good before I get too carried away putting it back together. So that's where we're at right this second. So I am going to tighten clamps and make brackets. Alright, so I got the front end off. So I went ahead and tightened up the two clamps here that are holding my oil cooler. They're nice and tight. Tightened up the bottom clamp on the blow-off valve. Tightened up the recirculating clamp that I had taken off. I've gone ahead and removed that orange or yellow, looking at orange thinking yellow vacuum tube and reconnected the black one. I have tightened up the clamp for the recirculating up here as well. I've plugged in the cable here, so the only thing I have left to do is find my zip ties and zip tie this wire up to the orange pipe. And I think what I'm going to do is just zip tie this MAC valve straight to the recirculating way it's out of the way and not just dangling. So as far as that goes, everything is now tight. So I'm gonna start working on fabbing up the template for my brackets and go from there. So nice thing about these brackets, they're nice and deep, so I'm not going to worry about I'm going to use these two outer holes for the push button parts, and then I'm just going to cut this down. It's I don't know what it is. I'm going to have to do some measurements, and then I'll figure out where the two holes are for the fender and drill those out. So knock those out real quick and start getting that ready. So I'm going to draw that all out here shortly. But now that I got all my things tight, the only one I have left to tighten up is this guy right here, because all the rest of them were the same size, and that's I believe a 12. So I'm going to tighten that up right now and then get to working on the brackets. Alright, so I took a piece of, it's actually vanilla folder and whatever you call that, file folder, cut it down. It's 3/4 of an inch from the bottom edge to the top. Used it to mark my holes, drilled into the bracket. Now I'm going to test fit it, and then eventually I'm going to cut it right above that, and that should be my final fit, and then we'll be good. So right now I'm going to test fit, make sure the holes line up, and then drill the next one out, be ready to cut them. Alright, so holes line up. I used the bolt from the back side of the fender. So that looks good. I'm just going to trim this off so that it's below the little lip line. And then I can put the pins in on here, and we can get that all marked up. So we're going to use the two outer holes, this one and this one. That will be what we put our pins in. It should give me enough room to adjust them. So yeah, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and drill the other one out just like I did this one, and then I'll cut them both. I'm just going to use I don't know what I'm going to use to cut it, but just a basic hand tool. I'll either use my angle grinder, or I've got an air grinder that's got a very narrow cutting wheel, so I can cut it just where I need it, and it should be good to go. And then I can go ahead and bolt that down and see how everything works. So I'm going to take my template off, and so yeah, how did I make the template? I just measured from the inner lip to the upper lip, and then it's basically 3/4 of an inch, so it fits in there nice and flat, and it actually rides on this that lip, so that's be perfect. So one more to cut or drill, and then cut them both. Alright, so this is still not bolted on, so still a little loose, but it looks like my bracket fits without rubbing, so that's good. As you can see, it's just below the line. The two bolts fit perfectly in the notches where it had fit before. So now I just have to put the plugs in, but I'm going to go ahead and cut the other one down and get it fitted, and then I'll worry about starting to put the body plugs in there and go from there. That's the most complicated part, is getting those pins to line up so you don't have weird holes in your bumper. But yeah, I think because right now it's just being held on by a bungee, so it's drooping. But yeah, I've got clearance all the way around, no rubbing, so that'll work. Easy peasy. A lot easier than 130 bucks or whatever it is that other people are charging. $30. Make your own. Okay, so I have both brackets drilled out and trimmed to fit just below the edge of the lump there on the fender. I went ahead and just sort of put the screws on there. Now, if you look at it from this angle, it is a little tall, so that's not that big a deal. The bottom one's going to be real easy because I got plenty of room behind it. The top one, we are kind of going to be cutting it close, so I will either have to trim off the bottom of the nut there, or bottom of the threaded part, so that I can get it down a couple more threads, or I could just take it back out, drill a hole so that I have a recess for it to go through, which is probably what I'm going to do, because it's just the easiest. I already have a hole and I can just drill straight through. But yeah, it looks pretty decent. It's going to be nice and big, and hopefully that should support it. And like I said, I use those strut things to keep the bottom of it from sagging, since I don't have much front end. So next thing here is I'm going to go ahead and put the other side together, more or less, and then I'm going to start test fitting the bumper again, and then I will mark where I'm going to have to drill that, and then I'm going to use a stepper bit to drill the holes out so that I get the right size holes, because I don't have, I think, the correct hole size hole saw to drill those out, so I'll just use a stepper bit. That should work pretty good. But yeah, less than $5 a piece for these brackets. A set of 4 of these push button things were on Amazon, was only 20 bucks, and I think these nuts and bolts were about 19 cents a piece, so say $32 with tax. And that bracket's not going to go anywhere. That's a sturdy ass bracket. So yeah, I think that works out pretty good. So we'll finish getting that set up, and then what time is it? I got about 30 minutes till dinner time, so I will see if I can get this front end sorted out. The only problem is I don't really have a place. I'm gonna have to figure out where I can, once I get the bumper set up, where I can lay the bumper so I can drill out the inside, because I really don't have a lot of space. All my flat spaces are kind of tied up right now, so we'll figure that out next. Even if I have to drag a blanket out, and I guess I could work between the 2 cars on the ground back there. So, but yeah, we'll get this sorted out here pretty quick and see how this works. All right. Might be hard to tell. Let's see if I can see. Can you see my finger in there? No, you can't. All right, so I went ahead and drilled straight through. You can see where I marked the thing with the drill. I went ahead and drilled straight through, so now the stud will fit through that hole. After I tighten it down, I'll have plenty of room. I won't have to mess around with it, and I'll still have room to adjust it later if I needed to. But yeah, I tightened these brackets down pretty good, so they're not going to go anywhere. I could come in and just chop these off, but when I test fitted it, these did not interfere with anything, so that's a plus. So the bumper should line up pretty good. Just getting these studs drilled through the bumper correctly is the biggest key now. All right, so I got the bumper back on and sort of where it's going to be, and you can see it sort of lines up nice. Once all the screws are back in, it's going to be nice and tight. So I don't have the pins in on this side yet, but I did put them in on this side. So trick is getting that up where I want it and then drilling the holes through. So that's going to work pretty good. You can see how those 2 bolts fit right between the 2 grooves, so nothing's going to rub on it. So that'll be nice and perfect. Part of my problem was, because this is so floppy, because there's no grill or anything, I kept getting it caught below the edge of the headlight, and it was making the whole bumper on both sides twist. So you can see right there where it's doing it, and that's why I use those turnbuckle things. These guys, I connect them to the bar and then drill into the plate. So I got 2 new ones that are a little longer than these. These are the short ones. So I'm gonna switch from 4 to 2 to these bigger ones, and then I'll just put a metal plate underneath, and that will support the whole front end with just those 2. The trick will be finding a spot, most likely probably on the sides, because that's where I can kind of get them in on both sides. So we'll see, but so I think I'm gonna call this quits for now. I'm hungry. It's dinner time. My blood sugar last night aired out my machine, and this morning when I took my meds, it was still in the 250. So stress will do that to you. So other thing I'm gonna do on the front bumper is remove the other front fog lamp. That way they're the same on both sides. I could run one, I guess, but why? I was going to use those to duct some cool air to the brakes, make some duct work for that, but now I'm just going to run the coolant lines through that. So once I get the front end sorted out, tomorrow I'll work on getting the pins lined up and drilled, and then put that together, and then I'll start bolting the front end back down so that it's secure, run the lines so I can bleed the oil cooler, and maybe tomorrow or the next day get it started and check for leaks. It's funny, now throughout the day the coolant levels come back up, so that's just ambient air temperature that's making the air inside the block go up and down. But that's cool. That's what that's for there. So, all right. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching.